Emyoga.
One of the best government intervention.
Meant to get Ugandans out of poverty.
How many people have paid back the money?
They really did not return their money.
Some people mismanaged their funds.
Leaders took much of the money.
Most of these people who are eating the money, they say they are cadres.
Some districts have not got any money.
A hit or a miss.
Emyoga has not died in Soroti City.
She has died at birth.
This Friday on News 24/7.
We are also going to start vaccinating children.
Vaccination of children will only be undertaken if parents accept their children to be vaccinated.
Jonah got vaccinated at school.
Samanya kontino mwana wange bagenda kumupima. Bwe bamukuba empiso, Jonah yatandikira wencha okuzimba.
I went to Chirudu Hospital and interviewed Jonah on his deathbed.
I
was trying to get the first-hand information. Just wondering, what's killing Jonah?
So we got to know about the details of the vaccination and the uptake 2 weeks after.
For even simple things such as doing a blood test, consent is required.
Jonathan died.
Investigating journalists.
Killing Jonah this Friday on News 24/7.
Man, I don't know what's today, man. Today I'm not feeling it.
Rock Boom, now in a new bottle with the same taste and same positive energy.
Yeah, I drop it like it's red hot. Shorty's coming back up.
Available in a splendid 20 ml PET bottle.
I just took a Rock Boom and I know it won't fly.
Rock Boom, feel the positive energy.
Hello and good morning. Welcome to Viewpoint. My name is Daniel Lutaya. You are live on News 24/7. This morning we're going to be talking about human rights, an issue that Uganda is always in the middle of, or the discussion around the country is most times always around human rights. And of course there are rights that have an entire chapter in our constitution, which is chapter 4. And we are going to be discussing extensively on what this government, which has been in power since 1986, has done to uplift that very constitution. The constitution that I'm talking about was actually created by the same government which is in power now. So we are certainly doing, like, maybe kind of call it a scorecard of how we have performed as a country with regards to this chapter 4 of the constitution. Upholding human rights in the country and good governance. I have a panel of guests that we're going to be discussing these issues with, starting with on my right, Mr. Isaac Kayonde is an NRM mobilizer and political analyst and former contestant for Member of Parliament Gomba West. Good morning. Say hello to the viewers.
Good morning, viewers. I'm honored to be here.
I'm happy for the invitation, and I hope we have a fruitful discussion.
Next to him is Sarah Birungi, Human Rights Officer at the Directorate of Monitoring and Inspections at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Good morning, Sarah. You're welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, our viewers and listeners. I'm privileged to be here this morning.
Thank you very much, Sarah. The next there is Derek Wandera, who is a journalist, senior journalist with the Daily Monitor. Good morning, Derek, and you're welcome.
Good morning, Daniel. Thanks for having me. Yes. I don't know whether I fit this panel.
Well, you do. Now that you're here, you certainly do. Yeah. So I want to start with Derek because he's been in the field. Some people call it the trenches. He's been in the field covering human rights in Uganda. And I think for the purposes of this panel, we have two more people that we are waiting for. They have called in for specific reasons, but they will be coming a little bit later. One of them is Agatha Tuhaire, also a journalist, and the other is Apollo Kantinti, member of parliament, former member of parliament for Chadondo East, and a member of the Forum for Democratic Change. So we have everybody at least represented, and the viewers will also get a chance to speak, so they are also represented. Now, Derek is maybe the one who is most neutral here, since since journalists are meant to be neutral. Derek, you have covered human rights in Uganda. The Human Rights Watch report, the latest, 2022, faulted Uganda on a couple of things: freedom of expression, women's rights, arrests and harassment of opposition. These are statistics that are there, according to Human Rights Watch. Attacks on civil society and closing of certain offices of civil society organizations, forced evictions, land, prosecution of political opponents. There were so many things. Now, this report was stemming from the 2021 election, which you covered. I want to ask you, do you agree with the Human Rights Watch report that faults Uganda for all of these things and scores us very low when it comes to upholding human rights, which have a whole chapter in our constitution anyway?
Absolutely. I feel the Human Rights Watch can't have gotten it wrong because one of the many times that especially opposition politicians have gone or have even been to Sarah's office here, and I know that they have documented quite a periphery of cases and issues in that regard. I covered the 2021 campaigns, but I had covered the precedings to that campaign, and I know that in as much as there were very many fights within the opposition and the current government and the army and all those, I know that journalists too were swung into the action of abuse, of harassment and maiming. I, for one, was arrested in Kalangala because I was covering an opposition politician at that time. And I know that Daniel, who is seated on the panel here, also suffered his own share. He almost lost his back. Yes. And I know that many journalists registered such, and I speak from the journalistic point of view. But of course, if I widen it to the general overview of the whole thing, I know that in the aftermath of that election, in fact, after November 2020, the opposition came up with a report and tabled names of 680 people in parliament, saying these had been taken away or whisked away in a manner that they called abductions. And the government did not come out to own up these 680 until the then Minister of Internal Affairs, Honorable Yeji Odong, came in Parliament and tabled another list of 177. And all these 177, out of these 177, only 20 names featured on the 680 of the opposition list. And of course, the media continued doing their work. They continued covering and interviewing some of the families of the lost, the people families of the people who had allegedly been taken away, and in a manner that they have insisted is called abduction, which I restrain myself from using on this show. And until April of 2021, the Internal Affairs Minister came out and owned that that the government or the security government state apparatus had arrested over 1,300 opposition politicians or opposition supporters in line with the November 18th, 19th protests, where Mr. The leader of National Unity Platform was arrested in Kayunga. And those arrests, those kind of arrests of coming up and meeting people on the streets and taking them in drones, some of them being taken picked from their houses, have continued till date. Now, out of these 1,300 people, President Museveni confirmed in his numerous speeches that the security they were holding about 55 people who had been taken by what he calls his boys, and those are the specialized security, which is the SFC, 55. And despite the security disowning even the 55, later, of course, these 1,300 list came out. But then, as the media, we did all the highlighting of all these cases to the general public. Some of which, of course, some of these cases had been spanning way back in 2019. Up to today, some of those people have not been seen. But that's not the only, and I think the Human Rights Watch, based on some of these cases, to pen down that report, which we covered so well, until I know that the Human Rights Watch, Human Rights Network for Journalists, the United Nations Human Rights Office in Kampala, did a lot of work in documenting some of these matters, which they brought forth. Some of them were debated even I remember the European Union Parliament. EU Parliament was tabled some of these cases, and we covered some of these things. So I don't think, like you asked me, I don't think the Human Rights Watch failed to capture these things. They captured them very well. We captured them as journalists, and they have been right here in our face.
So in other words, what you're saying is that Sarah's office has
had a field day, in my view.
They've not done anything, according to you.
Well, I feel they have had, when I say they have had a field day,
yes,
they have had so much to deal with since 2020, actually.
Yes.
Since 2020, they have had so much to deal with. I don't know whether they have dealt with them, and I have had, of course, very many opposition politicians complaining that they have not done much as they should.
Yes.
I have also had the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission coming out and speaking and saying whatever she has said, some of which is blatantly dismissing some of these cases, which we have seen. We have seen torture of, for instance, famous writer and author of
Kakwenza.
And I didn't see a report from the Human Rights Commission there. And she has come out to dismiss some of these cases, saying there is no abduction, there is an arrest. That's why
maybe you didn't see the report, but it was there. So maybe there was a report. Sarah will tell us whether there was actually a report on Kakwenza, because I know social media reports were there. I know the media journalists' reports were there. Reporters wrote about this story. The photos were everywhere on every major news organization. We also reported about it here. I want to leave Derek here. Welcome, Agatha. Agatha is here. Agatha is a journalist and also a lawyer. Yes, so she really understands issues of human rights. Good morning, and you're welcome.
Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, the rest of the panel.
Okay. Okay, Sarah, Right there, Derek has started us off with a plethora of allegations against your office. One of them is that he's never seen a report for Kakwenza. Have you issued a report as the Human Rights Commission?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, Derek. But I would like to bring it to your attention that the Commission was actually at the top of things during that election period. We monitor the pre-election period, then the election period, and the post-election period. And if you can check in our 22nd annual report, 22nd or 23rd annual report, we put actually Kakwenza is one of the examples of the people that were allegedly tortured by the state. But also to add on, the Commission actually went to visit Kakwenza when he was in prison and talked to him, and when he was tortured, we even took pictures of him, and that is also in our report.
So Kakwenza was tortured?
Yes, he had marks of torture on him.
Okay. Did you ever find out who did it? Because it happened while he was in custody. Did it happen while he was in custody, or did it happen before he was in custody?
Well, by the time we went to see him, of course, we couldn't tell whether it was before or after that.
Okay.
Yes, but he's in our reports.
Okay.
If you can check, yeah.
All right. What about the Human Rights Watch that has rated us very, very low when it comes to upholding human rights? You are the agency, the government agency that is meant to uphold Chapter 4 of the Constitution. How do you rank us so far? Because the reports I'm reading from the Human Rights Watch, which is an independent organization, they don't rank us very highly. From the Uganda Human Rights Commission, what is the ranking so far when it comes to human rights?
Yeah, well, as a commission, we are mandated to produce a report every year, which we give to Parliament, and then we launch it out to the general public. And for every year, whether it's an election year or an ordinary year, we have the state of human rights documented, cases are investigated, and the general human rights situation is put in. And then we have the Human Rights Committee of Parliament, which helps us to follow up on the recommendations that we make to government, to different, they're specific to different ministries and departments and agencies of government. So we have the Committee on Human Rights headed by the Honorable Fox Odoi, which helps us to follow up on the implementation of some of these recommendations.
Okay.
Yes.
So according to you, is it working? Because you've told me what you have in place to ensure that you protect these human rights. Is it working? Are your systems working?
Yes, it is working. The challenge, we had a hitch there when we lost the late speaker, Honorable Jacob Olanya, because he had I think programmed to look at the report, and then unfortunately he passed on. Then we went into the process of getting a new speaker. But we know, I think last year in December, the Parliament was considering the reports that we wrote, the 22nd and 23rd, because we launched them at the same time, of course, basing on the fact that we didn't have a fully constituted commission earlier, so we were launching two reports at the same time. So those two reports were considered in December last year by Parliament, and we continue to work closely with them.
Okay. I want to bring in Isaac Kayonde. Isaac Kayonde is a member of the National Resistance Movement, the party in power since 1986, the party that has won every election since 1986, whereas some people will say, some people have other issues to do with the elections, but at least from the official documents I have from the Electoral Commission, your party has won all the elections since 1986.
Undoubtedly.
Your party has been accused of putting Sarah and her agency in your pockets, and being on the oppression side when it comes to human rights, of getting favors from the armed forces, especially during election period. And this is not me saying things, this is from the Human Rights Watch report. They say, especially with the issue of arrests and harassment of politicians, it is highly, I've actually seen, I think, once or twice that NRM politicians have been arrested. Most times it is the opposition politicians that have been arrested. Do you feel, as a member of the NRM, that you are getting it easy when it comes to elections, and that the police is your friend, the army is your friend, and the army will beat anybody who is not your friend when it comes to politics?
Thank you, Daniel. But I need to give a disclaimer. I am not a spokesperson for NRM, and neither am I a spokesperson for government. Some of the issues, especially when it comes to human rights, no spokesperson can moralize some of the things that happen. However, some of us might justify a few things here and there. I've listened to the senior journalist there and my sister here about the human rights. I'm going to speak on generalities because, again, the topic I had focused on was the relevance and the exit of the Uganda of the UN
Human Rights
Commission.
Yes.
But generally speaking, this Human Rights Watch report, of course, highlights those abuses in our societies. But however, I must also tell you that there's no perfect society. There are human rights violations everywhere, every country, everywhere. In America, I mean, they are contending with police brutality or Black Lives Matter and all those kind of things. So in that, we know that this is going to be around for a very long time. However, if you look at the NRM government, let's look at what they have done to be able to sort out this problem or to highlight the problem. Uganda Human Rights Commission was set up, I think, in '95 through the Constitution, and it has been a steady growth of building institutions that cater for these human rights abuses. I mean, just recently, we never had an international criminal court in our judiciary. You have, for example, UNHCR itself came to this country in 2006. You know, you have the media, the space they have covered it from. I mean, even Gashumba is a human rights activist. Individuals are taking it upon themselves to highlight and these issues. So, the Parliament, the Human Rights Commission, they have a committee, they have all these things. So, the basics of enhancing a better society free of rights abuses have been set. What we can now debate is how effective they are under the circumstances, you know. So for me,
one would argue that the basics have been set just so that we can fulfill certain international obligations, but they're actually not working. What do you say to that?
The idea is that, look, everything takes growth. We cannot be perfect, you know. I'll give an example of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Before, I think, 2000, probably before 2005, I mean, before 2000, around between 2005 2011, their significance was really diminished. Okay, the significance was huge, but in terms of awareness of the population of their role, that they have somewhere they can even take a case, was unheard of. So we have seen more entrenchment of their activities into the society. They have opened up more branches, you know, around the country. So it's a growth process. So it's not going to take one day. It's going to take whichever government comes in, whether it's NRM or whatever, will continue to polish up these things.
Okay.
And again, you have to also see that the population right now, I mean, you're calling the government the agitators, the oppressors and everything, but the government has a role to play in maintaining and protecting my freedoms just as much as the other person's freedoms. So in that, there will definitely be some clashes here and there. I don't want to denigrate the people who have gone through the suffering of at the hands of security, but I also know that now they have the ability to take government to account. I'll give you an example. Akena, the journalist who was beaten
yes.
During, I think the BBC or whatever.
Yes.
He went to court, he sued the government, he was awarded millions of money. You get it? That's a process of accountability. He took it, he went there and got it. And there have been numerous.
But then the thing is, after Akena, many other journalists are being beaten.
Yes, and they have also gone to court. Even the ones who went to UNHCR with Bobby Wine. Do you know what happened? And unfortunately, after the event and the noise, people don't go back to follow up. Officers who beat those people were taken to the General Court Martial. Let's taken to the General Court Martial and given sentences, whether light or restrictive, whatever it is. They were taken to the court. They were convicted. The soldiers. Maybe we would have loved to see the commanders also go, but that's a discussion for another day. Is that there was a certain level of accountability that was given. So people are participating in the human rights activities. I mean, you have political parties. These political parties didn't exist in from 86 onwards till 2006 when we went for the first. But they have also grown in stature and influence to demand for their rights. NUP, for example, is a leading human rights they do political activism in line with human rights. They as well get sympathy in their pursuit of these human rights abuses. So, as a society, we have grown, we have become each other's keepers in this affair of
so in your opinion, the Uganda human rights structures are working?
Yes, the human rights structures, one, exist. Two, they are functional. They are not performing the best that they should, but they are functional. The Uganda Human Rights Commission certainly probably needs more funding to tackle this issue. But we are not there. The government is probably not doing that because of the numerous things that they have to do, you know. But they're functional and they exist. And I believe that the human rights status of Uganda will keep improving. It's not perfect, but it will keep improving. At least based on the previous regimes and all, this is the most accountable regime that Ugandans have seen.
Maybe Ugandans want more. Let me ask Agatha, and thank God that Agatha is a Ugandan, so she'll be able to tell us whether she feels that she needs more or she agrees with Mr. Isaac Kayonde that the human rights structures are working, they are present, they are functional, and they are working and they are growing. Agatha, what has been your experience?
I don't know if there's anyone who would agree with the gentleman here. Everything he said, many of them are lies. For example, I do not know any of the people that beat up journalists who are still limping, by the way, at that event to the office, the UN Human Rights Office.
Yes.
I do not know that
there were 8 journalists. 8 journalists total were beaten. I think there is a Daily Monitor journalist who is to date still uses crutches because of that.
Irene.
Yes.
She's still limping. Give me one name of an official who has been.
Isaac, you're going to have to use your pen and paper now to write. If you want to respond, you're going to write because I want to protect Agatha's time so that she can make a submission. Then you respond after.
Okay. There are a few selective cases of those that have gone to court and courts have actually responded. I have been trying to actually fast track these cases of journalists. There's a journalist that was beaten a few years back by an officer called Joram. The journalist was a journalist with WBS. That guy has never recovered from that. there was no compensation enough for that, for even his treatment. Joram is not in jail. Joram was probably just transferred. I think so the punishment against those that perpetrate this vis-a-vis the injuries that they inflict on people. Normally it's a transfer, a demotion, or maybe a fine. I do not know, and I would like Isaac later to tell us who the journalists that actually beat up, I mean the security officials that beat up journalists last year. That is of 2021.
Yes.
To tell us who of those have been sentenced in courts or punished in any way.
Yes.
The other thing he talks about is there's no perfect
yes, there's no perfect government.
And then he talks about the Human Rights Commission not being as vibrant before as it is now. And then he calls that progress.
Yes.
That actually is not progress. The reason the Human Rights Commission is more in the news now than it was 10, 15 years ago is because there are more human rights violations now than there were when this government came to power. And that's not progress. That you have a government which comes to power under the guise of we want to protect people, their property and their rights. And then after 10 years, 15, they start getting to where they went to the point at which they went to the bush, take up arms and fight. That is not progress. And the human rights.
So Agatha, you think that Uganda is worse than it was in '86 when the government of NRM came in?
No. I was not there then.
Yes.
What I have read and heard suggests that it was bad. The people that actually, I have conversations with the people that went to the bush who say we are actually getting there, to the point when they said, let me get up and go and fight, because whether I fight or not,
I'm still going to die.
yes. And when you see what happened in 2020 in November, where people were killed, people who were not even politicians, who were not supporting anyone, who were moving around their business in town and were killed, you understand that we are getting there. We actually could be there. That someone can be walking on the street and people just come shooting randomly. If you watched that documentary, how the BBC later did it, you could see how people would just shoot randomly and indiscriminately. So what I am saying is that we are worse off than the first 10 years of NRM. Yeah? So the reason Isaac is talking about the Human Rights Commission of the 2000s is because then they were not human rights violations that were as rampant on a daily basis like there is now. And so the Human Rights Commission right now, and it's one of the reasons the government gave to not renew the office of
the UN Human Rights.
UN Human Rights that they have. So when you look at the legal framework and the institutional framework, we would have the best human rights record if we followed it. You have the Constitution that has a whole
But don't
chapter.
we follow it? We have the Human Rights Commission
No,
here.
we do not.
It's
We
been
do not.
fully constituted.
What has the human, when you look at Article 52, which talks of the Constitution, which talks about the functions of the human rights, and when you see what is happening, you know that the human rights is actually very toothless. And I am saying it in her presence here. Because all those functions, where they are at the mercy of the people they are supposed to investigate. So you look at their reports, you look at the reports of other independent human rights observers. Look at the reports of the HRNJ every year. These reports implicate security officers, UPDF, the police, in abusing, violating rights. Has the human rights ever got up and said, we are going to take action on this and this and this person? Has it? She is saying they visited Kakwenza, and she didn't even seem to be sure at what point Kakwenza got those torture marks, because she said, I don't know if it was in detention. The Human Rights Commission, which is effective, should have by now have a report of how Kakwenza got those torture marks, and someone who inflicted them would be brought to book by now. How many years has it been? It's over a year since that happened to Kakwenza. It is over a year, and up to now, no one. And on that one, let me even ask Isaac.
Yes.
Kakwenza's torture marks were visible to everyone. Have we seen anyone being held responsible for that?
Can you see some of your time so I can
I can
address?
Write that and I finish. So the picture that is painted by these people, the NRM people,
yes,
and the government, which is saying we have all it takes to observe the human rights. They are even talking about NGOs that they are gagging each and every day. So that picture is that if you go, like how the Attorney General Joan Kachirioa went to the UN Committee on Torture and said, oh, we have this law. Now, if you're telling someone, they can look at our laws and say, really, if you looked at Chapter 4 of our Constitution, you would say, these ones have the best interests and the human rights of the people at heart. If you looked at this Human Rights Committee in Parliament, it's a very new committee, must have come up in the 9th Parliament. But it was mainly, and there's been, people have been pushing for this committee to be also one of the committees led by the opposition, because to get it and put it under an NRM person, I remember for a long time.
But human rights are universal. That's why they are human rights. They are not opposition or NRM rights. So
well,
even the NRM people need human rights, isn't it?
We are not saying they don't. We are just saying the NRM people are not independently doing that work of checking the people that are violating human rights. That is all we are saying. That if they go to, I think that committee.
I actually thought that on human rights we are all on one side, because there are rights for all of us, isn't it?
If we are all on one side, Isaac wouldn't be saying that there are issues here and there, that there's friction here and there. He would call it what it is. You cannot look at how Kakwenza was beaten and tortured and call it friction here and there. You cannot know or say that others are not perfect. So that's just some small imperfection in our human rights record. And you know, that's the problem. That people who are here now seem protected, think they are protected by being members of the NRM. Yeah? But we have seen that these things come to bite us. When Amama Mbabazi, the former Prime Minister, contested, and he was the victim of the Public Order Management Act, everyone was so happy, because he is the one that, yeah? So they are universal, yes, but some people have that privilege. If I know that they will never clash with me because I don't go on radio to say the wrongs they do, I will feel that privilege and say, you know, I have told someone who said, I am apolitical, I don't care what happens, and I have said, and that was after the 11 killings, the 18th and 19th killings in 2020. And I said, Mr. Chitove, a 72-year-old that was killed there, could have been apolitical. The woman that was taking food to a customer, I doubt that woman cared about the politics of this country. So that's what makes them universal. But when a system is not working, it will affect everyone, whether you support NRM or not.
In other words, the bullet will not first check.
It will not. So what I'm saying is,
as you wrap up, I want these people to respond to you, because I can see them looking at you.
We should call things what they are. The Human Rights Commission, and now it is worse. When it was under the late Medikagwa, at least you could tell that it doesn't have power, but it would see the things that are happening. The one we have now, actually the chair goes on to sort of make fun of the human rights victims. When she says they are politicizing it, when she says remarks like those, and she has said them, right? I don't know what you call that. That someone is actually seeing what is happening, the people that have disappeared, the people that have been in detention for years without any trial, the people that are abducted every day, the Kakwenzas of this world, the Zakes, and say they are politicizing it. That it can't get worse than that.
Okay, I want to have Sarah respond to Agatha, and then after we have Isaac, and then we'll bring in Mr. Apollo Kantinti, who's just joined us. You're welcome. Good morning, Honorable Apollo Kantinti. Sarah, there's been a lot of fire coming this side directed your way. What do you have to say? She talked about November riots. She talked about Chapter 4, violations, universal human rights. And she said, you people are not seeing anything that is happening. Tell us.
Thank you very much, moderator. First of all, I would like to say that most of the issues she has highlighted are actually were documented in the report that was preceding the election year. And also to mention that
is documenting the only thing you are supposed to do?
I'm going to protect Sarah from Human Rights Commission now. Let Sarah say, tell us, Sarah,
yeah, like
tell us the actions that the Uganda Human Rights Commission has done to make sure that Agatha sleeps more comfortable at night.
Yes, I would like to say that some of the interventions that we do as a commission are actually not brought out in the media. Unfortunately, the media seems to see the negatives. But if we were to, for instance, involve the media in most of our engagements, you would be shocked at the kind of work we are doing. It's not only here in the city, but people right in the countryside.
The lawyers say justice should
really
not only be served, but also be seen
to
be served. So why don't you call the press and tell them, today we are grilling a certain human rights abuser. Today we are grilling Daniel Lutaya, who was caught beating people in the community. Tell us.
Yes,
why?
we would have loved that, but you know, of course, our basket is not enough to cater, and you know, these things are not, they do not come free of charge, but it is one of the interventions that we have resolved to take on, to have more of media engagements in most of the work we do, because we tend to be seen more on the civil and political rights, but to tell you the truth, as a national human rights institution, we deal with very many other rights. We have economic, social, and cultural rights. We have rights of vulnerable persons. We have rights of refugees. And all those are issues that are never seen. So when one of the civil and political rights, for instance, is violated, but we also understand that Mr. Isaac here talked about funding. It is not only us that needs funding, actually. We have challenges of funding in almost all the institutions. For instance, police. When you are talking of the 48-hour rule, then you look at the violation and this suspect in the cells, and then the time that is needed. You cannot carry out an investigation in 48 hours, for instance. Some of these things are beyond us. And you look at the challenges under which police, for instance, is working with inadequate funding. They do not have means of transport. Even small things like stationery, you find it is a challenge, but they are never brought out. So you have police, then the DPP, the prosecutors, and then judiciary. It is a whole cycle. So I think this funding should be extended to not only us, but also to these other institutions that enable justice to be achieved. Also to mention that we have a national action plan that is in the offing. It is now before the Minister of Foreign Affairs. It has been a process. It is looking at the entire human rights and freedoms in the country. It's looking at economic, social, and cultural rights, health, education. So it is not something that we rushed. It has been a process. We consulted with different people, cultural leaders, religious leaders, youth, older persons, very many stakeholders involved there. So it is one thing that we hope will be able to solve some of the issues that we still have as a country.
All right. Isaac, you are here taking a lot of notes. What did you write from Agatha's?
From Agatha, really, I really want to, I've always listened to Agatha in other spheres and admired her presentations. But when she called me a liar, I took it a bit personal because her not knowing doesn't mean I'm wrong, you know? Because for sure I even without much hesitation, I put in the soldiers, 8 soldiers after that incident of the
at the UN. It was February 2021.
Yes.
8 journalists
8
were beaten by
journalists
military
were beaten,
police.
and 8 soldiers were taken to the court martial, and 7 were convicted. 1 was given a reprimand. Yeah, this is in the Daily Monitor of which date? I think I should highlight it so that the viewers know. And this is Monitor of February 18th, 2021, right? Okay. So if we get into, like I said before, I was explaining, I didn't want to get into case-by-case issues because those then evoke emotion, right? And if we talk of emotion, then we miss the general picture. And when you look at an issue like Kakwenza, one of the things she hasn't brought out is the mandate of the Human Rights Commission. The moment a case goes to court, the Human Rights Commission cannot investigate. That is in their guidelines of how they operate. So them going to visit Kakwenza is probably one of the ways to understand that issue of it not happening again. As far as investigating to find out who did it may not necessarily be their mandate. You know, when there's CID and all these other institutions, maybe the ones who did it. But that, like I said, that is something that is we won't get into. Now, the other thing she talked about was the toothless Human Rights Commission. Human Rights Commission is at the level of a high court, right? Okay. So they have the ability to investigate at that level and make orders, and they have made orders on specific cases of people who have been tortured in jails and stuff, and they have made them. And like I said, if we get into the specifics of this case, that case, then we shall miss where we are today. I will tell you something that I'm sure she's passionate about now that she's talking about accountability and security forces, selective this, selective that. I watched that BBC documentary, and by no means am I saying that, look, the people who died or the people who were shot by security were right, you know, that it was right for them to shoot people and everything. It was wrong in every sense of the word, and that is something that that needs to be condemned on a case-by-case basis. But like she highlighted, there are a lot more violations. As far as this government is concerned, I want to be challenged to tell me in the 70s, yeah, how many officers were even brought a case for mention for picking up people, you know? And I will give you a list of people who the military has cautioned, you know.
Agatha says we are getting there.
Yeah.
We are getting back to the 70s.
So
Pandagari and whatever. You know, we are getting there. According to her, she just said it's not my words.
The difference here is that, look, we are saying that the fact that a minister, a president, an MP of NRM comes to the house and says, okay, you have made an allegation, you have written names of 600 of them that have disappeared, right? This is the list of us who have picked up these people, you know, and they come and say, okay, we are accounting for the number of people, we are accounting for, say, 170. They go back, cross checklist, they come back, they add another 200, and this is in Parliament, right? That act is not pretentious to the level of saying, you know what, there are no people. Pandagari happened in the 70s. We've read about it. I wasn't here, but we've read about it. That accountability was not there. You either went, you either disappeared, or you were lucky to escape, or But you were never presented in court. That's the journey where we have come from. And this is where we are. People like Agatha, I can understand, want better or ask for better.
Not just me.
Yeah. And I said to people like you, ask better. I'll give you, there are so many atrocities that have happened in the north.
Now that I want to bring in Derek before we go.
Make a clarification here on Isaac, because Isaac was talking about the mandate of the commission. It's under Article 53, and one of it is that the Human Rights Commission has the power to order for a release of someone after investigation.
Yes.
How long did Kakwenza stay in to the extent that he wasn't even allowed to go out for treatment? What did the Human Rights Commission do? Because the powers are there. Yes, I know.
Okay, now that you've asked that question, the Human Rights Commission, Sarah is going to take notes and tell us what they did and why they didn't order for the release of Kakwenza. I want to bring in Derek, who has been listening
his
closely.
Passport or anything?
Yes, or which is still there, by the way. His passport is still in custody because he flew without a passport. Derek, tell us your thoughts on this before we move back to Honorable Kantinti.
I have listened to Sarah here from the Uganda Human Rights Commission, and I've listened to Isaac, and truthfully, we cannot continue comparing civilization of 2023 and the civilization of the 1970s. We will be just playing around with the minds of Ugandans. I mean, there has been a lot of transformation from 1973. For instance, you would hardly, in fact, this road was never there. This road in Chisas, where we are seated right now, was never there.
This was a bush.
Was never there. This was a whole bush. And if you're trying to look at accountability for human rights and compare them on the verge of 19
over mean
with Uganda, which has moved, which actually last time they told us that they are not very sure whether we're in third or middle income status. If we have reached that extent,
let us first leave the economy alone.
Yes, tracking our economy, tracking everything, and tracking where we are in a digital era, that things are going to happen and they will be splashed in the eyes of the people. And we are trying to compare the situation right now to 1997. That's just going to be.
But Isaac said.
Then I'm saying.
Isaac said there is also human rights abuses in the U.S.
What I'm saying.
Is, Americans are always protesting.
What I'm saying
there are human rights abuses in Congo. Is Congo in 1970?
Human rights abuses are there everywhere, but there is a will in each of those countries that he mentions to hold people who go perpetuating those human rights abuses. There is a will in Uganda.
So there's no will in Uganda.
In Uganda, I don't think there is a will. One is, for instance, when we were on the campaign trail, Ashraf Kasidi, one of us, a journalist, was shot at by either a tear gas canister or whatever it was, and it shattered his head. The officer who shot him was mentioned in several stories. I mentioned him in my story in Daily Monitor. The NTV story captured him. The NBS story captured him. He was all over. The best he was given was he was transferred from Masaka, where he was the RPC, to Lira. He's now going about his job. And this Ugandan, this young Ugandan, a promising Ugandan, will never be the same. And on that day, not only Ashraf Kasiri suffered that kind of. So you can see that there is no will whatsoever. Just recently, NUP tabled a list of 25 members who had been either taken away or whatever, some of whom have been missing from their families, from their wives and children for over 4 years. And the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission said, these are politics. There is nothing like that. Like, these people have not been taken away. Of course, there was a list that was released. I mean, there was accountability given for 4.
15.
For 4 whom they said had been released.
There's a point of
on board.
information here for 15.
The Uganda Human Rights Commission released a list of 15 vis-a-vis NUPS 25. They then mentioned, the Uganda Human Rights Commission then mentioned that there are names on your lists that are out of this country. Chibalama Moses is on your list, but he's out of the country. As a Uganda Human Rights, he's in Nairobi. You don't know this?
Chibalama Moses was been missing for not Moses Chibalama, that is
Moses in Congo.
John Bosco. John Bosco Chibalama. He has been missing since 2018.
Yes, listen, let me finish. The contention of that 25 versus 15, and I said to you earlier, is that, look, Uganda human rights within its measure.
Why doesn't he note down those things?
Let him give the point of information, then we come to you before you go to a break. Let's prepare for the break.
Yeah, the 15, Uganda human rights is at the point of saying, okay, yes, we are investigating. We also look for them. You get it? If they have been taken by security forces and whatever, and you are talking about safer, Uganda Human Rights Commission must use information from the people who have brought that submission. And if NUP gives them a list and says, people, this is it, it has not put that they are in Ichireka, here. The Uganda Human Rights Commission goes and says, okay, these are the ones we have found, right? So the fact that they are giving accountability, and like I said, once we get into the emotion of this case, that case, this guy, this part, we miss the role and the efforts that the Uganda human rights is playing for the entire population.
Okay, Derek, finish up before we go into
let me finish up my point. One is, he's talking at cross purpose with me, Mr. Isaac. He's saying John Bosco, Moses Chibalama is in Nairobi.
There are two Chibalamas.
Moses John Bosco Chibalama has been missing since 2018. And just recently, you remember, the Prime Minister came out and said that John Bosco Chibalama was arrested and he's in custody. Now, do you know that you're not speaking at tandem with the person who speaks for you, the Prime Minister? And I don't want you to respond. You can put those things there. Okay. For me, the will to hold those accountable, and I have mentioned here names. I've mentioned incidents of where we know those people. Everyone knows those people, but there is no will whatsoever to prosecute them. That means human rights in Uganda. I mean, like, you know, I think this is something we're going to talk about when the people who are trying to tell you that, please, can you hold up to these human rights incidents, and you are chasing them. Okay, then that shows you how much there is no will to hold those that are perpetuating.
All right, we are going to take a short break now. When we return, we'll be talking about the exit of the UN Human Rights Office. The panel is now full. We have Honorable Apollo Kantinti, who will be starting us with that conversation about Uganda's refusal to renew the license of UN Human Rights Office in this country. We'll take a short break now, and we'll be right back. Good morning.
Yeah, yo, yeah. Man, I don't know what's today, man. Today I'm not feeling it.
Rock Boom, now in a new bottle with the same taste and same positive energy.
Yeah, I drop it like it's red hot. Shorty's coming back up.
Available in a 320 ml PET bottle.
I just took a rock boom and I know it won't fly.
Rock Boom, feel the positive energy.
also going to start vaccinating children.
Vaccination of children will only be undertaken if parents accept their children to be vaccinated.
Jonah got vaccinated at school.
Samanyako nti n'omwana wange bagenda kumupima. Bwe baamukuba empiso, Jonah yatandikirawo enkya okuzimba.
I went to Chirudu Hospital and interviewed Jonah on his deathbed. I was trying to get the first-hand information.
Omwana n'atabuka n'atandika okusesema omusaayi.
Just wondering, what's killing Jonah?
Wangamba ekibumba kya Jonah kyafa, ensigo zaafa.
So we got to know about the details of the vaccination and the uptake 2 weeks after.
For even simple things such as doing a blood test, consent is required.
Jonathan died.
Investigating journalists.
Killing Jonah this Friday on News
Emioga.
One of the first government intervention.
Meant to get Ugandans out of poverty.
How many people have paid back the money? They really did not return the money.
Some people mismanaged the fund.
Leaders took much of the money.
Most of these people who are eating the money, they say they are cadres.
Some districts have not got any money.
A hit or a miss.
Emioga has not died in Soroti City.
She has died at birth.
This Friday on News 24/7.
Nafuna akawuka kano nga nkajja ku mukyala nsinga obukulu be bayita ba sugar mami. Yali omukyala yampa emitwalo 4. Nanga lwaki sikutwala e Kampala. Yali mukyala muwanvu, yali mukyala mweru, yali asula kyengera, yali mugagga. Nagwa mu ssente kye bayita okulonda ekyapa mu mannya. Namugamba sibimanyi naye nja biiga. Nga kyennwanako butadda mu kyalo. Ne nyingira ekisenge, nangamba kyenkola kyokola. Ningenda okulaba ajjeeko ekyawagulu abeere gakkiridde nga mangi. Yangamba to fix my head between her two legs. When I was using my tongue, what I sucked out of her, it was like chalk. Yali forced okungamba, Hassan, you have to swallow. Kuba nawanda. Bwe naona nambuuza owanda olina ssente. Saddamu kusesa. Nekifuuka kya lutini. Buli lunaku nga nkikola, lwe nasaba essaala Mukama antwale. Nga nfulumya amabega ne mu maaso. Siri mwaluma.
Man, I don't know what's... today, man, I'm not feeling it.
Rock Boom, now in a new bottle with the same taste and same positive energy.
Yeah, I drop it like it's red hot. Shorty's coming back up.
Available in a flooded 20 ml PET bottle.
I just took a Rock Boom and I know it won't fly.
Rock Boom, feel the positive energy.
Hello, welcome back. Good morning. You're watching Viewpoint on News 24/7. My name is Daniel Lutaya. We are talking human rights, the exit of the UN Human Rights Office from Uganda. What does that mean for the country? But most importantly, what does that mean for you who is watching, the ordinary Ugandan out there, and also trying to score the government's human rights record? I'm going to start with Honorable Apollo Kantinti, who just joined us to give us his view of the exit of the UN Human Rights Office. I think the question I'm asking is, do you think that this government is capable of upholding Chapter 4 of the Constitution with the UN human rights watchdog out of this country?
Thank you very much. And, good morning to fellow panelists here, Eric, Sarah, Isaac, and Agatha. This is not a new thing. It's just this is happening, and it's going in bits. I don't think the government or the president was ever interested in upholding this human rights.
But Chapter 4 was created by this same government. Actually, the whole Constitution.
The Chapter 4 was created. The Constitution was written. The Constitution was...
Actually, the president you're talking about was the chair of the Constituent Assembly that wrote this Constitution.
And since then, the Constitution has been changed.
Yes.
Has been tampered with, has been changed as clauses go by. And even then, by the way, it's the same thing. Why? Agatha, when I came in, Agatha was talking about the mandate of the UN. Yes, the mandate is there. It's there on paper. It cannot bite. It's the same thing with Parliament. Parliament cannot bite. How many recommendations has Parliament made? What has come to pass? The president, who was the chairperson of the Constituent Assembly, knew it and had it. It was planned from before. He knew that.
So you're telling us that, President Museveni planned not to uphold human rights?
The document. When you look at the document that was offered when they were renewing the mandate, actually they actually report themselves, because in that document they are telling you when the human rights UN human rights body was given the mandate. And they're telling you at that time what challenges they had. I believe they were in northern Uganda and eastern Uganda. And then they were interested. Kony was in play.
Because they came at the...
Kony was in play and they were very interested. Then fast forward, Kony was taken to the ICC. Then ICC seemed to be a very good body.
By who?
Ayebare. Ambassador Ayebare was the one who was lobbying. I know that first-hand information, and you should know it too. Ayebare was lobbying to take Kony to the ICC, and it was Ayebare behind that job, right? And he did it successfully. From his side, he did it successfully. Years later, when my brothers and sisters from Kasesa are going to the ICC does not look very good.
Interfering with
now, yes, ICC, the United Nations, those ones, they can never protect us, they cannot do anything.
But the case went.
You understand? No, the case went.
Yes.
But what was the talk that was coming from here? What was the talk that was coming from here? The talk that was coming from here was talk of arrogance, wolf. Yeah, we don't depend on them, we don't need them, and they cannot whatever. So, my sister Sarah here, you're sitting on, should I call it a balloon? You're sitting on a balloon. There is nothing. You can tell us all those programs that you're bringing up that are coming, and they're all going to be on paper. Nothing is going to be enforced. Why? Because right now, if the UN, the human rights bodies, were to carry out their mandate, there is definitely just one culprit, and it's the government of Uganda. These days, what are we talking about? What are Derek's reporting about? It's drones. When the drones came, at the time, the first drone was the one that was carrying message, and they called it the message van. Little did we know that the drones would multiply and would be everywhere. Now the drones are multiplied. And my brother here, Isaac, uses words. There is a way he uses his words and makes everything simplistic. He says we should not evoke emotions. Why are you not going to evoke emotions when somebody has been beaten? As he's putting his hands up with the camera in his hand, and you're saying, no, we're not going to talk about case by case because we are going to lose the bigger picture. he uses words like cautioned. The officers who are there were cautioned. That's what I've been hearing. Right?
No.
You understand?
You take notes now. You have to take notes.
Take the notes.
Yes.
But he uses words like cautioned. This is a situation where, that's why when Derek was talking, when Derek was giving us his presentation, he mentioned a colleague of his. These are very serious issues. And to use words lightly is intellectual dishonesty. That's trying to twist what the situation is. Now, the situation right now is that now it has come to the point where Mr. Museveni and his government actually do not need these bodies overseeing. They are going to need them when they need them. If it comes to refugees, why did they terminate?
UNHCR.
Or refuse to renew United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees? Why? Right?
Because we still have refugees in the country.
So we don't have human rights violations.
What we're saying, we have human rights violations, but why did they?
No, maybe they have the Uganda Human Rights Commission is present to deal with all human rights
right now. As a way, and this is going to be this. He has spoken a little bit about it. As a way of inserting or asserting their authority, their power. Does not need any of these bodies poking around. They do not need. Sarah mentioned she used the word documented. They even do not want to see anything documented that is going to come out of that, right? And so it fits them, and that's what works for them, and they're not going to renew the mandate of the human rights.
Okay, Agatha, do you think that this government is capable of upholding human rights without the UN watchdog in the country?
Even with the UN watchdog, it is incapable, because the UN watchdog has been around and we have still been seeing human rights violations. We have been talking about the incident where journalists were beaten at right in front of their offices in 2021, haven't we?
Yes.
So this government is just, and I can't use the word incapable. It's just not willing. Incapable is if someone wants to do something but they don't have the ability or the capabilities to do it. In our case, it's just lack of willingness, because when a presidential candidate is going to report, just make a report, that report wouldn't have done anything. Because I need to tell you that even when they were here, the office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights was as toothless as the others, as the Uganda Human Rights Commission that we're talking about. Because there had been many agreements that were barring them from interfering in certain issues. And also that required them to investigate with consultations with the Uganda. So to speak, the Uganda Human Rights Commission had to give them a go-ahead to. So that's why even when they were here, we had these issues. When Bob Wine went there and journalists were beaten in their yard, there was, what did they do? So the documenting that Sarah talks about, and Sarah was saying that no, what I'm saying is not true, because the Uganda Human Rights Commission has documented the issues I presented. But when you look at their functions and their mandate, it does not stop at just documenting. Documenting is good. I have spoken to a former MP, Paul Mwiru, about, we're talking about recommendations of Parliament that he spoke about. That you have parliamentary committees make recommendations in their reports every other day, but they are not implemented. And Paul Mwiru said, it's not a bad thing. The record is there, that's a good thing. Another government will start from there. So documenting is not bad. But documenting alone, when people are dying, when people are maimed, when people are forced to flee their homes, is not enough.
Well, what would you advise? What would be enough?
what would be enough is making sure that you make it costly for anyone to beat up or kill or do the things we are talking about here. The reprimand that Isaac speaks of, the cautioning,
that was one individual
no,
out
but,
of the many.
No, but you see,
it was an example.
Exactly. And Isaac, I'm not saying.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm saying is that if we went to look at the people that have perpetuated these human rights violations, how many of them have been punished as the law requires them to be punished? We can finish this conversation and sit together and do that research. You will see that not even 10%. Yeah? So what would be enough is for us to follow the law as it is. We have the Constitution, and I've been talking about chapter 4. There are articles that are even non-derogable, that you can't have an excuse to say that no, I'm going to do away with this article. Fair hearing. Let's start from there. Even torture. Let's go to torture and fair hearing. How long have these MPs been in jail for, in detention for?
Almost almost 2 years now.
Yeah. Have they been afforded a fair hearing? Has it been a trial? Yeah. So that would be
the DPP
enough.
last week said they are ready now to prosecute.
But you see, you cannot be ready. You cannot be ready after 2 years, and you say you have given someone a fair hearing. When you read that article 28, a fair hearing includes prompt, speedy hearing, because after 2 years. So what would be enough is for us to follow the Constitution. There's a time Namboze, there was an audio of Namboze. I remember a friend of mine saying Namboze should be allowed to speak in Uganda, even in Parliament, because that audio, it was in Uganda audio, it was so brilliant. I would have loved to share it with you. And she was talking about an example of someone who set for himself exams and still failed them. That you are allowed to set your exam. You say, I'm good with Ngoni in history, and you still fail it. And that analogy was for President Museveni. He was allowed to set his own constitution. He came and took his 10 years and said, we have to first have a constitution in place. He has failed to follow that constitution. I did a series of articles in the Monitor towards the elections of 2021 with older veteran politicians, those that have worked with the president, that worked with him when he came to power, even before. And one of them said, I think President Museveni did not know what the constitution would come with, because he had been the Alpha and Omega before the constitution. He was the president, he was the Minister of Defense, he was the Speaker of Parliament, yeah? The chairman, yeah? The chairman of the NRC. Now the constitution comes and it is saying cede some of his powers, and he's not willing to do that. So when he was putting it in place, he thought it's going to be easy until it required him to cede powers. And I'll go back to the question you asked me of what would be enough. Let us make sure people who torture, who violate a non-derogable right, like freedom from torture, rot in jail. Instead of people like Sewanyana and rotting in jail for what we don't even know. They don't know. No one has. Let the people that have tortured Kapwenza go to jail and pay for that. Let the people that have beaten journalists get the full weight of the law. Let us observe the law that we put in place. So no one forced us. We cannot say that the colonialists forced on us this constitution. So this country is not incapable of upholding human rights. It is not willing to uphold them. And that is why it is chasing away people that are going to shine a light. Because there's nothing else they were going to do anyway, just to document and shine a light on what is happening. Because it's not a coincidence that this comes after the humiliation of the Attorney General at the Committee on Torture, when he was saying lies and protesters came and said, but see this and that. So if they had nothing to hide, if they have institutions capable of as they say in that letter, of observing human rights, then what is their problem? Why can't they allow the people to stay here and actually document and show to the world how we are incapable of how we are capable of protecting our rights?
Isaac Kayonde, I don't know if I even have to ask you any other questions, but your government does not want. It is that's what Agatha says. The government that you serve, the NRA government, set its own exam about human rights, set its own exam, and is failing that exam. What do you have to say?
First, let me register my bias so that at least we are very clear. I have a distinct bias against UN organizations in Africa.
Why?
So I am putting that there. Why? Because every country that you see the UN has a peacekeeping mission, a UN base, a UN human rights commission. Many times it is more disruptive than progressive. And that is a discussion for another day on the role of the international vis-a-vis the internal affairs. So
so it is right. It was right for the for government to send UN packing.
So now, yes, now I'm getting to that question. I've registered it, and Agatha should know, and the Apollo, that look, I'm not going to defend them. Now, going back, let's look at this UN
Human Rights
Office.
Yes.
How did it come to Uganda? It came here in 2006, right? They had a very clear mandate then, very clear. We are coming to Uganda with a mandate to look into conflict areas. Where were the conflict areas? The north and northeast.
Uganda. Yes.
North and northeast. And their mandate was there. And they set up offices in Gulu, right? Subsequently, they keep moving.
No, it's the government that keeps extending.
I'm saying.
Let Isaac get to his point. I want to make his point.
When they came here, they had a geographical area to cater for, which was the north and northeast. And that was in their initial mandate. Now, the government, subsequently, they have been renewing their mandates, and it went on to cover the entire nation. Now, the government was very clear in the letter that they wrote to them and said, we are not renewing this mandate because we have established structures to be able to sort out human rights abuses in the country, right? And that was the mandate that they came with. We are helping you because many of these institutions were non-existent then, you know. So what we can now debate is these institutions that government is talking about. Are they existing? Two, are they functional? Judiciary, for example. The judiciary from 2006 to date has expanded to cater for these human rights. They have created special courts. Like I told you, the International War Criminal whatever court. It is prosecuting people who are abusing people's rights in the north in that war. You know, they have set up. They have empowered Uganda Human Rights Commission. You know, they have. It's certainly not the static, small, non-existent entity that is there. So today there are probably how many districts or branches do you have?
24.
24 branches. In 2006, there weren't 24 branches, right? You have, for example, media. Media. We used to have maybe we used to have maybe 2-3 TVs.
Yes.
Covering the entire nation. Today you have regional TVs from different people who are able and do it on a daily basis to show human rights abuses. So the government is saying, look, we have your role. Thank you very much. You have supported us to build these structures. Now we have built them. Thank you very much. We will not be renewing your mandate. And it should not be taken in bad faith because that is the journey of growth. These UN organizations, they go into a space and they stay there. They have been used as spy offices. I mean, that's what we have been reduced to as Africans. That you have, like Agatha said, that it is a useless organization. It doesn't bite, it doesn't do anything. So what is it doing if it does nothing? Documenting, even Agatha here, you go to her Twitter or her whatever, she will document for you those human rights abuses. So for me, as a society, we have grown to be able to highlight some of these atrocities within.
So in other words, you see this as a winning of the sorts. Uganda is we are winning our human rights structures away from the UN human rights because they have grown enough, isn't it?
Yes, I believe we have had now what you'd call growth. And the debate today, unfortunately, again, I see the people who are pushing for this UN rights body to stay in Uganda are people who directly benefit from it. Write a proposal, take it to UNHCR, it funds it, right? Honorable Katinti here mentioned about the Kasese incident. UNHCR, I mean...
UN Human Rights.
UN Human Rights was, I think, also participated in supporting the people who took the case to ICC, the FDC team. And guess what? What they are not going to tell you is that that case was thrown out of the ICC. That case was thrown out of the ICC. Why? Because
the FDC's case.
Yes, the FDC's case of Kasese, whether MPs or whatever it is, took it to ICC, and the case was thrown out. Why was it thrown out? Because nobody was offering justice for the soldiers who are being killed outside that kingdom, the palace. The king has not denied having a militia, you get, to defend him. But the sole purpose.
Where did he not deny? Was it even a fair hearing in court?
No. I mean, the Queen Mother was there. They have an agreement over, and this case went to ICC. I can tell you, cases that have of such nature that have gone to ICC and hold water have been prosecuted, and like the case in Darfur, people took it to ICC. Didn't matter whether Bashir was there or not. ICC was independent enough to look at the facts and prosecute. But in Uganda's case, they said, look, the government of Uganda has no fault here. You take your case back, and that's it, up to this date. But they will not tell you that. Why won't they tell you that? Because not only did they use it for the usual politics of it, but they were insensitive to the people who lost their lives down there in Kasese. So for me, all I'm saying is that, look, UNHCR, what is its role? What is its mandate? You get? The country, the government wrote in its paper that, look, the entire country is peaceful. We don't have an internal war in this country. We are able to take care of this situation. And yeah, thank you for building. The issue of money, yes, the only thing I feel is that, okay, yes, UNHCR is giving us some quality jobs. You get, for the individuals in there, they probably, in the environment of unemployment, surely there must be, a long chain of jobs that will be lost. But should the government not take up its role to protect the citizens of this country and uphold their human rights just because the UNHCR is around, has money? So for me, it's a thing of what is their mandate, what have they been doing, how relevant is it to the citizenry?
All right, Sarah, do you think...
clarify?
You have a point of information.
I didn't say that UN human rights officer is useless. No, I said, because the question was, are we capable of upholding our rights without the UN here? And I said, even when they have been here, we have failed.
Okay.
And it wasn't to say they were.
Okay.
I want to bring in Sarah. Sarah, do you think that you are capable? Because now that the UN Human Rights, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights is gone, it means you are our only hope when it comes to human rights in Uganda. The Uganda Human Rights Commission. Do you have the capacity? Do you have the will, as Derek said, to hear human rights complaints, to be the watchdog against the government?
Can they bite?
Will you bite?
Yeah, can they bite? She should tell us they have the teeth or they don't have the teeth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. And if I can begin with what Honorable Katinti said about, I don't know whether it's him or Agatha, tending to relate it to areas that had conflict. Or was it you, Isaac?
Yes.
That, yes, they came at a point where we had the LRA conflict in northern Uganda. However, it shouldn't be seen to mean that, for instance, in countries where UN is operating, it has to be in countries that there is conflict. There are so many other countries where UN has presence, and these are countries that are relatively peaceful. On the ground, for instance, you can look at Mauritania, Cambodia, even Mexico, Guatemala. There are many countries. Though here in Africa, of course, we are trying to say that their presence is in countries which are unstable. It's not the case. However, as a commission, I know they've been supporting us so much. We shall miss them so much. However, the Uganda Human Rights Commission is a member of the Interministerial Committee, the same committee that drafted and is following up on the National Action Plan on Human Rights. So the committee sat and was not in support of course, the exit of the UN Human Rights. And our chairperson sat in a meeting with some of the ministers, foreign affairs, and tried to put a case, of course, for us, for the UN Human Rights to stay. So our hope as a commission is that maybe government will reconsider reinstating the mandate of the UN Human Rights. This is not the first time actually this is happening, only that this time it came out in the media. It happened in 2016. There were also issues around that, but it didn't come out in the media. So there are still talks of how to reconsider the decision.
Because of the support, financial support aspect, because you are underfunded by government. Is that a fact?
Yes, we need more government funding.
So UN Human Rights was giving you money, was giving us as a country money, especially with regards to funding your work in upholding human rights. Is that correct?
Yes, I must say that they funded a lot of our work. They funded, for instance, the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights, which is already out and in force. They funded it. They've been funding most of our activities, monitoring elections, civic education, trainings, institutional capacity development.
Maybe the budget is not yet. You know, the budget is not yet out. Maybe government has got for you some serious money waiting to give you.
It's not only about the money, actually. They've been giving us even technical support. I mean, it's a lot. And it's not only the Uganda Human Rights Commission. A number of civil society organizations have benefited from the UN Human Rights. Talk of very many institutions, actually. So our hope is that it will be reinstated.
What if it's not? What if it's not?
So it is not useless.
No, it is not useless.
Obviously, the money can't be useless. The money. That's why I said.
So what if it's not reinstated?
Of course, if it is not reinstated, we shall look for other ways of trying to go around our work. We have many other partners that are willing to come on board. For instance, we are in talks also with Danish Institute. So we are hoping for more. But our prayer is, of course, that they stay. Even if they stay, we shall as well require the other support that we are trying to lobby for right now. Yeah.
But also government needs to add you some money.
Of course, that is one of the recommendations that we make every
Agatha
year.
seems to believe government is not going to add you a single coin because she says they are not interested in your work.
They're not interested in human rights.
No, government is actually...
You can, like she said, you cannot fund a person who is going to come out and undress you. You cannot fund a person who is going to document stuff. That's going to be on international level. Right?
Let's go to Derek. Derek, you've heard it all from human rights, from Agatha, who is a human rights activist, lawyer, journalist. You've heard what Isaac has said. Do you think that this country has the capacity to handle human rights issues in all the four corners of Uganda
now
without the UN human rights here?
Let's try to look at Uganda at a broader perspective. We all know here that Uganda has shifted their partnership much from the West, and it's shifting it so much to the East. We've seen their partnerships with China, we've seen their partnerships with Russia, and all the eastern side of the world. And it is not by coincidence that we see that most of the works of the people from the West, you've seen how the NGOs have been affected, especially which are coming from the West. And now the UN, which is coming from the West as well. Of course, there are some other organizations from the West that are still functioning here, but it's not by coincidence that you're seeing that the UN human rights watchdog is leaving the country.
I think you need to get closer to the microphone so we can hear you, so the viewers can hear you clearly.
Is leaving the country. Now, for me, from where I see it, there is a strategic move, in my view, for the government to shift their gears. When you look at, for instance, the people in the East, like the Chinese, there's not so much work from the UN that's there in Russia and stuff like that. There's not so much work, and probably part of the conversations they are having, these governments are having, and these partnerships are having. Do we really need these people in our presence when we are taking over the world and stuff like that? And then you look at how effective have these UN partnerships in these countries been of use. And when you hear Sarah speaking here, of course there is some kind of help that comes in, monetary, technical, and stuff like that. But when you touch base, you're trying to put a finger on what they've done. There's been conversation that these people have been very useless in this country. They have been barking dogs that seldomly bite. But also there has been a lot of hypocrisy that has been dubbed to them, that you will see a UN coming to Kamocha, or going to Najanankumbi or Katonga, and telling them, oh, we are fighting for your rights and stuff like that. And the next day, or even in the afternoon, you will see them in Nakasero or in Tebe. What does that mean? There's been questions, of course, about what's their intention. Their intentions, of course, have been lined have been put on the lines of their interests in the countries they are occupying and stuff like that. For me, I don't think that narrative can sustain any kind of conversation, because I am one of the people who has been affected as a person, and I know I have been to the UN offices, the UN human rights offices, so many times, documenting my story, trying to know how did this come to pass. When my story ran all over, that I'd been arrested and tortured and stuff like that, the UN officials, the UN human rights officials came to me, called out to me, and they just wanted to understand, what is it that you're suffering right now? How did this happen and stuff like that? I know for me, just taking my story helped me psychologically. Just trying to interview me, just trying to listen to me. But I know that profile that they did on me did not just end in Uganda. I know that it went far as possible. And I know, because of documenting some of those cases, because I know they have hosted activists in this country, they have hosted journalists in this country who have been facing different problems. And I know the fact that they have been profiling some of the journalists and activists could be the reason as to why they have been banished from the country. And for me, my question would be, if there is work being done, even off or on the screens or before the cameras, do we see the effectiveness of the work? Yes. For instance, I have so many friends in the Human Rights Commission, so many friends who are officials there, who are commissioners and stuff like that, and I have never been called, for instance. My rights have been trampled on. I know that human rights expects that I go and report a case. UN human rights did not wait for me to go to them to report a case. They identified my problem and they called me to their office. Now, if we are going to, and I know even when cases are taken there are people, for instance, the opposition people have run to the Human Rights Commission, taken their cases, and still they have come out and said that even when we took our cases, we have not seen any effectiveness. Does the exit of the UN Human Rights Office from Uganda cost us anything? We are going to be maimed. Our human rights violations are going to be trampled on, and no one, trust me, no one is going to listen to us.
All right, I want to bring in now Honorable Kantinti. Do you think that the government's refusal to renew the UN human rights mandate is political? Does it have any connotation of politics in there?
Yeah.
Why?
It has politics all over it. It has politics all over it. There are a couple of words that have been used here. Sarah, I think, has mentioned civil society. Agatha spoke about the Constitution and who was the maker of the Constitution, who was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly.
Yes.
These are there's some things that there are some norms that are universal, like human rights is universal, and as a country we cannot stick away from international organizations. We subscribe, we follow the IMF, we go along with how the World Bank is doing. When the economy started biting our pockets, they were telling us it was the war in Ukraine that was causing this.
So we're a global village now.
Yes, we're a global village. At around that very time, we are adding DR Congo into the East African community, and then you're backing away from international bodies that have been existent for quite some time. As Derek mentioned, moving away from the West, I'm not saying that, I'm not advocating that we should be pro-West. As a matter of fact, when President Museveni was just about to get into government, he had an interview, I think it was with BBC, and he was saying we're not pro-West,
we're not pro-East.
But when it suits us, it's very good for American Marines to come and help in the search of Kony. When it suits us, it's very good we can get the aid we get in regards to refugees and the economy. When the Derricks start writing about money for refugees and how it's disappearing, and all the scandals that are in West Nile with the South Sudanese, that becomes a problem. So we're a global village. As a country, we're not yet there. China is the second biggest economy in the world, right? If we begin taking on the arrogance of China, we will not survive. And China has got a very big population, and its economy is pretty strong. They can be self-sustaining. Much as we want, we cannot get there. So when we talk about this, for me, here's the thing, and to answer your question why it's political, President Museveni has always had this. He has always known it. Even when he was making the Constitution. When they were making the Constitution, I won't say he single-handedly made it, right? But he was chairing it. When they were making the Constitution, they knew. They knew. And some of these universal norms had got and have got to be there. He only made them impotent. And when he gets some time, he will do away with slowly. He will continue doing away with
the constitutional provisions.
With any organization or anybody who is going to be an inconvenience for his stay in power. So it's absolutely political, because first it has been
But point of information, Katinti, just so that we are clear, the government of Uganda has not said that they are not going to observe international human rights and everything. They have said that we are closing your office in Uganda.
Yes.
But as far as all the other treaties and human rights agreements, international and all, we will observe.
Okay.
I will just clarify
that. Why does it hurt to renew the mandate of the Human Rights Commission? Sarah has just told us they're going to miss them. She has just told us they're hopeful and they're trying and there's something in the works, and hopefully the mandate will be renewed, right? So we're on the same page. What is it? How did the document pass minister's desk, or did it pass cabinet meeting that they were doing, that they have, and they did not notice it, and then the mandate, no, they pinned down and they gave the reasons. And according to you, Isaac, you were saying that when the human rights came in, they had a mandate of a geographical area that was conflict
prone.
Yes.
Let me just.
I want information. I'll give you 30 seconds.
Yes.
Time is not our best right now.
And we are talking about that the interest for the coming of the UN.
Yeah.
And they say that it came in 2006.
Yes.
Now in 2006, that is the year when the LRA was pushed out of the country, and it has never returned. Now. 2006 really, 2007 was just yeah. So if they came now, you see, if they came for LRA, why did they come when the LRA has even left the country? If that was the case, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Apollo Kantiti, you have 1 minute to give us your final remarks on this before we do the round of last remarks.
This has been happening, and it's happening, and I'd like to interest our viewers in the fact that, as Agatha confirmed, our country, our president, our government, not our country, our government is not interested in upholding the human rights. As Isaac has said, he has said they have not said they're not going to respect international rights.
Yes, the international treaties.
It says they have not said they're not going to work. But at the same time, this is the time when, as I walked in here, she was talking about Kapwenza. She was talking about the MPs who have been in jail, who have not gotten a fair hearing. She was talking about the Constitution, right? And it not being obeyed. And we're talking about drones. As I was telling you, the first drone was Besige's drone. That was the first one. Now we have very many of them. It has become a new normal for some of us. Fortunately, I've not been a victim, but it has become a new normal. People are being picked up day and night with drones. And this is the same time when you say you're not renewing the mandate of an international body, and you're subscribing to the other international bodies, and you're saying that you're going to be the custodian of human rights, when our own judiciary, which, by the way, President Museveni, he was very clear about it. He said, I've worked with the executive, I've worked with my military, I am now going to get my cadres. The judiciary is, by the way, it's a big joke as well.
Okay, I want to bring in Agatha now as you give us your final remarks. Where do you think we go from here? Do things get better? Do things get worse? It seems from the government's own letter that they're trying to make things better. From I don't think that there is any government in the world that wants to make things worse for their people, but Agatha can let me know if she thinks otherwise. Where do you see us going from here?
I like optimistic people like you. I don't know if it is being optimistic or hearing a drone when you move outside. But
maybe he's blind.
He hears the drone.
Things will get worse. Yeah. When you see the trend of the last, let's move from maybe 2016. I'm saying let's leave, because in before 2016 actually they were isolated. 2011 elections, the black mamba at court in 2005. Like, you would have just one incident every 2 years maybe. But when you see the trend now, look at what's happening in civil society, in NGO world. Have you read the latest circulars from the NGO board? Then look at we are being even told that there's no company limited by guarantee which is going to be allowed to operate, that every company limited by guarantee must register as an NGO because they know there's the NGO bureau to squeeze them. So look at the shrinking civic space. Look at the journalists, how they are being handled. Look at the opposition. Do you see any hope of things getting better? I do not see it. In fact, I actually think things will get worse until something drastic happened.
But you just told us that anything worse than this is a mean. Is that that's what you said at the start of your?
Yes, of course it is. But what is the difference now?
So we're going back to Amin.
No, I want to know people who are saying that there's any difference. When you see people that are being that are disappearing every day, what difference is there? Is it in the numbers that no, the numbers are not yet as high as they were during Amin? So the being worse is not a question for me. When I look at this trend, when I look at the DGF was thrown out the other day, and mainly because it was supporting NGOs that are using that money to hold this officialdom and the leaders to account. Now this follows. I wonder what next. Yeah. So I don't see any hope for better.
Okay, Mr. Isaac Kayonde.
Yes.
Things get better. Are things getting better, or are things getting worse?
Things will get better. Certainly, they have been getting better, but the optics of it, of course, are not
they have
good.
been getting better. Give us an example.
No, and like I said, the generalities. I don't. The Baganda say. Echijomanyi chitwala chinyaga bitono.
What?
Echijomanyi
chinyaga bitono. That to expect a government to not confront lawlessness while you're being lawless on the street, when you go to participate, there are things that are going to happen, and I'm not condoning torture. I am not condoning those things. You have to understand. But in the context of government, it is doing what it has to do to safeguard people. If it's going to pick up ADF people who have sleeper cells, I think they don't need to announce or put a signpost that we are going to come and pick you up. No. I'm just saying, like the incidents in Tiana and all. But anyway. Aside from that, really, you asked him whether this issue was political, and I said to myself, there are very few things in this world that are not political. Even food distribution in the world is political. Uganda government, in my view, I don't think we will be able to withstand the pressure that will come with this. I've read so many articles, Reuters, Voice of America, everything is on this issue. And I don't think the government will withstand that pressure. I have a feeling that they might reconsider their issue, but at least in terms of negotiation, it is also a tactic that government might use. I don't know for sure, I don't speak for them, but my suspicion is that they are trying to make a statement here that look, we can operate without you, we will do it without you. But anyway, the other issue of politics, as a country, we need to move away from throwing pity parties. You know, at what point shall we have say that now we are independent of these UN monies? Because the biggest issue here really is money. When shall we hold the government accountable to the point of saying, please invest in human rights, please give Uganda Human Rights Commission enough resources to do their job, so that they are independent, not only in word, but also in deed. That, you know, if they say that we have awarded such and such, or you government, these people in police, if they do it, they have the capacity to withhold any pressure. So for me, I'm saying it starts right now. If we can win ourselves of so many things, that these UN things, we would be in a much better place. UN say invest money in UN. If the government of Uganda, and to say it has many priorities, when will it prioritize human rights? So that conversation starts now, and I believe we shall miss the point if we continue discussing whether they are here or not. Livingstone Sewanyana, a leading human rights activist in the country, came out the other day, not in defense of UNHCR, I mean
UN Human Rights,
UN Human Rights, but saying the conversation now must turn on to Uganda human rights. One, governance structure at Uganda human rights. Don't we need to have a discussion about how the committee is selected? That conversation can start. When does it start? You know, the funding of the commission. How do we do it? When does it start? So he was saying, look, we need to stop looking at this and focus on building our institutions in Uganda. That is my last remark. And
okay, I'm going to read some comments from the viewers. We have Text Drax says Sarah Sarah appears to have her facts right. Mudanya says Sarah is spitting facts. I'm enjoying the talk show. Thank you for watching. Dorothy, I would like to inform Mr. Isaac that the officer who beat up Kasirye was not brought to book and justice wasn't served, even when he was caught on camera aiming at him. Kampereza Diana, well done, Sarah. Text Drax again says, Mr. Kayonde, we are not interested in your biases. Respond to the grave issues raised by Agatha. And then we have Aine Amania Habwe. Defending human rights violation is a slippery slope, and many more. Thank you for all those that are sending comments on the YouTube channel. There are many more on Twitter, but because of time, we have to go to Sarah now to give us her final remarks on this and her promise to everybody who is watching this show. Just so you know, this show is recorded, so these words can and will be used against you in the future in case you promise us things and you do not deliver.
That's why I don't want to even look at the comment section. It's an enviable task.
So thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I would like to go back a bit about what Agatha was talking about, Kakwenza. I remember Kakwenza when visited, and it had kind of skipped my mind. He said his case was before court then. So when the commission wanted to take in his statement, he actually said he was not interested in us having his statement because he already had it in court. And of course, like Mr. Kayonde had already said, for matters that are before court, that is a matter that we cannot go into. Then on, you talked something about having the violations increasing. Actually, as a commission, we noted that while the complaints were increasing in number, it was a sign that there was the civic education that we are carrying out, for instance, was making more sense to people. People were now more informed about their rights, so that prompted them to come and register their complaints with us.
It wasn't because the violations are more rampant. That's what
no,
you're saying.
In the past, violations were there, but people didn't know even that they had that opportunity to report. They didn't know their rights, they didn't know their responsibilities. But of course, as a result of our civic education, we've noticed that people now know, especially in the countryside. We tend to look at human rights and look at Kampala and the center, but deep down for us, we have our roots on the ground. We notice that people are becoming more aware of their rights, and so they are demanding for them, whether in health facilities, whether in whether civil and political rights. There is a lot of at least that kind of improvement. Then also to talk about torture a little bit before we can go to the UN Human Rights exit. The Uganda Human Rights Commission was at the forefront, first of all, of that the Anti-Torture Act that we have right now. And my boss, the director of monitoring and inspections, was one of the people that was drafting that. and we hope that maybe government can become more practical and implement the act, so that officers and individuals who carry out torture, because torture is a non-derogable right, can be able to account individually, not as maybe police, as a security agency or UPDF, but as individuals they can be held accountable. And through our numerous trainings and interactions with them, we see that now the cases have reduced. For instance, we had many cases in prisons where suspects and people, that inmates that were incarcerated, were
being beaten.
Yes, but now we have we made sure that there are human rights committees within the prisons. They have their chairperson, so we know within the prisons at least there is no torture, because there are those committees within the inmates themselves. They are able to report in case there is a violation. They are able to report.
Have you done some research on the drones? You spoke about drones. Because it looks like people are not tortured when they are in Luzira. Looks like there is something that happens from the time they pick me from this studio to the time I reach Luzira. Something happens and I end up,
Unfortunately, now the final destinations of those drones, sometimes we may not be able to tell. For us as the commission, sometimes it is hard, because for us we are mandated to go to places that are gazetted by government, and that is why we've been pushing for the ratification of the optional protocol on the Convention Against Torture, because with that in place, we can be able to go to all places of detention and then be able to foster the prevention of this torture. We've also been pushing for the enactment of the National Legal Aid Bill, so that the torture victims and survivors are able to get some kind of legal aid. That is one thing that we have been pushing for, of course, in conjunction with the Witness Protection Bill. So as a parting shot, those are, at least as a commission, we've been recommending to government, and we hope that we shall be able to achieve that, having the National Legal Aid Bill passed into law, plus the Witness Protection Bill.
How do Ugandans reach you? Because I want this show to be also informative for people that are watching and listening. How do people reach the Uganda Human Rights Commission? For example, if I feel that my rights are being abused here, what do I do?
Yeah, we have a head office located on Lumumba Avenue, but we also have 12 regional offices plus 12 field offices across the country. They are based on the regions. We have Arua for West Nile region. We have Gulu office for Northern Uganda. We also have Lira and Padel Kitgum field offices. We have Hoima regional office.
Do you accept complaints online? Because
yes, we do.
Your offices are guarded by men in the similar uniforms to the ones who normally commit these atrocities. So I don't think that a person who has been beaten by a police officer will enter an office which has counter-terrorism outside it. I don't think so. So do you accept online? Do you have a phone line? How do people reach you without having to walk in?
We have a toll-free line, first of all.
Tell it to us.
For the
do you have it there on hand?
I need to look for it. We have a toll-free line. We also recently
I'll give you an opportunity at the tail end of the show to give us that toll-free line, but you'll look for it later. Yes. It's okay.
We have a toll-free line. We also have you said I shouldn't talk about the walk-ins because some complainants may fear maybe the people in uniform. We also have a OHCHR app. It was launched recently, where people can log in and be able to lodge their complaints. We also, our complaints and investigations team was allowed to use Facebook to receive some of the complaints. Yes.
All right.
So we have been able to, the app, the toll-free lines, Facebook, and then the walk-ins, of course.
Now, the last question to you, UNHCR, Uganda Human Rights Commission, UHRC. On whose side are you? Because from Agatha and Apollo's issue is that there is one side of the people who are being beaten, who are facing the human rights abuses, and then there are the oppressors who are, yes, there is a side that is beating them. On whose side are you?
There's the side that is
When it comes to dealing with human rights violations, are you on the side of Agatha who has been beaten, or are you on my side, me, the police officer who has beaten Agatha?
As a Human Rights Commission, we are mandated to protect and promote the human rights of all citizens. Actually, even the non-citizens, because we also look out for the refugees and immigrants. So we are there for the.
So in other words, you are on the side of the one whose rights has been violated.
Exactly.
Whoever it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Regardless of where
So Agatha,
they
you see
come
the commission is on your
told
side.
You left
It-
some sides. There are sides in the middle there.
Derek, your final remarks as Sarah gets us those that toll-free line, because I know it's the toll-free line that will be buzzing more than the walk-ins.
Thank you.
Get closer to the microphone again.
Thank you,
can raise it
Daniel.
up a bit.
Thank you, Sarah, for that very calm submission that you have put on the show, despite some of us jumping off our heads at some point. But again, when you ask the question of does it get better or does it get worse? And Isaac says it's getting better. I don't know whether we're speaking from the same context.
Yes, that's how he sees it. He told you about 1970.
The glass is half full. The glass is half full.
Yes.
It's half full.
Because when you read the human rights reports that have been released by the Human Rights Commission, maybe from we can say 2017, the numbers of human rights violation cases have been increasing year in, year out, increasing by either 10, 15 or whatever, up to where we are now. The numbers have never dropped. And when we have the numbers going high, and the people who are supposed to keep us in the watch are being dropped off, and we are optimistic by their, for instance, we say like in Chisasi, the number of robberies are increasing, and then we are removing police officers from the community, and we are very sure by removing police officers from the community, the
robbers are going to have a field day.
The robbers are going. According to Isaac, the robberies are going to
No, but
reduce.
that was a strategic security move.
It actually
people were attacking police posts and stealing guns.
This is just an example.
So it was a strategic move.
This is an example.
Yes.
Yeah.
That if, for instance, in Kisasi we have maybe 3 police stations.
Yes.
And the cases that are reported in a day are 7. And another day they are 9, and they have kept increasing in a week. And we say that let us actually take away this police, and we are sure that, like Isaac says, the cases are going to drop. Then for us, we don't know what we are talking about. I feel it's not even about funding.
Yes.
Funding is very key, but it's not even about funding. It's about the will, and especially the political will. Because I know very many officers, like I said, I have very many friends in Human Rights Commission, and I know how many of them speak with restraint. Because one, they have to protect their job. And I like the fact that Isaac is coming in with a suggestion, and let's talk about discussion. Let's have a discussion of how do we select the committee of the human rights officers, because then it has become,
maybe we make them independent like judges, permanent forever and ever.
As it is right now, someone will be speaking, will not run after some people, because even Sarah has said, like, there are some things that are beyond them. For instance, incarcerations, official places of incarcerations, for instance.
Yes.
The gazetted places, they can't go to safe houses, and yet safe houses exist in this country, and it's a human rights violation. And if they are doing their investigations and they can't reach such places, then they are going to get half truths. So for me, I feel there is need for a political will.
Yes.
And there is need for people to be very very intentional in going after human rights violators.
All right, I'm going to give the last say on this to Sarah to give us that toll-free line, because Many of our viewers may want to call that line right after here, but also in case I also have issues, I call on that line. If somebody picks me, I know which number to call.
But you've just been told,
Sir.
if it's a drone, she will not get there. She cannot access you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. So our toll-free line for the head office on Lumumba Avenue is 0800 100 766. 0800 100 766.
Should we try it?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Then for the central office, we have the central office handles our central districts in the central region, and it's in Naguru, just opposite the police headquarters. We have the toll-free line as 0800 122 444. 0800 122 444.
That's all, I think. All right, thank you very much, all our panelists. Derek Wandera, senior journalist, Sarah Birungi, human rights officer and the Directorate of Monitoring and Inspections at the Uganda Human Rights Commission, Isaac Kayonde, NRM mobilizer and political analyst, also former contestant for Gomba West in the Parliament of Uganda. We also had Agatha Atuhaire, who is a human rights advocate, also lawyer and journalist, and Honorable Apollo Kantinti, former member of Parliament, Chadondo East. My name is Daniel Lutaya and I've been the host. Thank you very much for joining us. Join us next Saturday at the same time and we'll be talking about issues of national importance, and we hope that we'll be able to change this country for the better. Good morning. Bye-bye.